Welcome to another episode of the OTP Pod, where we bring you uncensored and unfiltered talk about football. I think this week is going to be really uncensored. It's not been a good week for us at the OTP. I'm your host for the day, Chinny. Unfortunately, O couldn't be with us. He's from suspension, too many yellow cards. Well, he just didn't want to talk about Liverpool today. But you have me and you have Mr. White. How you doing, Mr. White?
Yeah, I'm all good. It sounded like you were reading an obituary for a second, the way you said, "Oh, ain't with us no more." Like, but yeah, no, I'm all right, man. I'm blessed, bro. Other than the football, Jesus, it's been a tough few weeks, tough few games, isn't it? So yeah, man. Other than that, I'm blessed, bro, man. But yeah, it's been a hard week. I can't lie, man. I think it's been a hard week for the whole of the English teams, bar Villa, isn't it? You know what I mean? So we got Liverpool out, West Ham out, Arsenal out, City out. It's interesting. It's an interesting conversation about, we talk all this talk about us being the most dominant league and whatnot, just for all of us to crash out of Europe. It's interesting.
We're already getting it here at the OTP Pod. You got Kerry. Hello, broskies. I can't wait for a certain man to talk about the bottlers, i.e. Arsenal. Sounds like a very sour Spurs fan to me. I'm not sure, but to me it sounds like a very, very sour Spurs fan. But you know what? We talk about our club here on the pod. We'll get into that. Don't worry about that. But bottlers,
to be fair,
not quite sure.
To be fair, you know what? I can understand. Listen, I'm a keep it 100. I think it's a bit early to throw the bottlers tag because we ain't played that game up on Wolves yet, and obviously that will determine if we really are bottlers or not. But it's an interesting narrative. I mean, there does have to be conversations had about April, and yeah, I mean, we'll touch on it. We'll definitely touch on what's gone wrong, what's happened, But yeah, I think, maybe we should just start with the CL roundup and the roundup of Europe. City going out, Arsenal going out, Liverpool.
You said the CL roundup. As I was writing, I was like, bro, we're talking about CL roundup, but one of us here are imposters because they weren't in the CL, but I guess we all went out of Europe. But yeah,
well, and that one's probably the saddest if you look at it really objectively. Like, I know O's not here to defend his team, but let's keep it 100. Liverpool were favourites for that Europa League, and when you look at the trophies available, that was probably the one guarantee that they could probably bank on as being the most obtainable for them, especially when you consider it's Klopp's last season. And for them to go out in that competition, I think, yes, it's sad for Klopp, innit? If from a Liverpool perspective, I mean, for me, it's enjoyable. I can't lie. I wanted that villain to go out that way because there's so much about him that I just dislike. I think he's very passive aggressive with journalists and whatnot. I respect him as a manager, but yeah, I think he's a dislikable character unless he's your manager. And yeah, it's like I said earlier, man, it could be a sad season if they go out the same way Ten Hag came in, you know what I mean? And it's looking more and more likely. And respect to them, they did and they qualified. I think if we're talking about Liverpool, Mo Salah had a chance at 1-0 that could have really, really changed that game. I think he lobbed it over the keeper. I don't know if you saw that miss, but it was a bit of a howler still. Yeah. And had that gone in, that would have, in my opinion, that would have flipped the game on its head, and that would have been their opportunity to do maybe a Barcelona, part 2 kind of comeback. Obviously, not the same level because it's not CL, but it would have been there. And they fell short on wayside, and it's looking quite scary for Liverpool in a sense of this is that last hurrah, and the PL is not going to be any easier. They've gone out, they've exerted a lot of energy. It's not like he fielded a weak inside. He put out all the big hitters. Salah played, Van Dijk played, Konate played, Trent played, Alisson played. Off the top of my head, Szoboszlai played. It's a respectable defeat in terms of the second leg because obviously they it was a competitive game. They won the game.
We talk about me and Arsenal group chat stuff. We talk about, or just in Twitter in general, we talk about this is possibly the worst Bayern team in however many years. Whatnot. this is our best team in how many years we should be winning. Atlanta are about 30, between 30 and 40 points below Inter Milan, who are not even in the Champions League anymore.
Yeah, I mean, I think with Liverpool there was a certain level of arrogance in that Europa League first fixture at home at Anfield, because they kind of rocked up just thinking, we're Liverpool, we're a Champions League team, we'll beat everybody. And you can't have that attitude, you can't have that mindset. And, you know, obviously Gasperini put in an exceptional kind of coached performance of his team. He had them man-to-man pressing, and they were able to exploit the gaps in Liverpool's midfield and defence and create chances and scored. And Liverpool, you know, if we're to be, you know, honest, Liverpool had chances in that first half and they failed to take their chances, kind of similar to the United game, and then they were punished. And that's what happens. You can't have arrogance. We saw it ourselves as Arsenal fans against Porto. You know, a lot of our fan base were talking, Porto, let's go there, win 2-3-0 away, and then the home trip will be easy. But you can't have that attitude, you know. It's not feasible in Europe. You've got to have respect. They're there for a reason, you know. And Atlanta have got some good players as well, man. They have some really, really good players, man. I like Cooper Miners midfield. There's that other midfielder. What's his name? That all the Brazilian midfielders. I think it's Edison's name is. But I know Tottenham are chasing him. Arsenal looked at him. Liverpool looked at him. He put in a very good performance. You know, Skamaka's a good striker. They have talent. You know, they got. Pardon?
The Dutch midfielder is his name.
Cooper Miners. Yeah, he's a baller still, and they've got some talented players there, man. So it's not like you're playing certified bums, and it showed, man, and it really showed. But I think that's, from a Liverpool perspective, that's the biggest disappointment for them, is that there was only one major where it was really in their hands, really, really in their hands, and they've kind of felt wayside. And it's, you know, the Premier League with Man City at the top now, and we know how Man City are. The way I like Man City is it's like the relay race, yeah. When Jamaica got the relay and they pass it over to Usain Bolt. Yeah, I'm trying to say finish him. Yeah, I'm trying to say to you. So them man they will have a lead and then they'll pass it to Usain Bolt. And you give it to Usain Bolt that last stretch, he's gone, bro. He's cutting and he's leaving everybody in the dust. And that's what City do. That last stretch, typically speaking, you know, they've never really lost a title race under Pep Guardiola. You know, because the season that Liverpool won it, the season Liverpool win it, City were never there, right? Liverpool just, yeah, it was a whitewash kind of season that year. So it's not looking good. So, yeah, it'll be interesting, man. I mean, one Premier League. I know there's been a lot of conversations about Klopp's legacy in the Premier League and where he ranks. Is he top 3? Is he top 4? Is he top 5? Is he better than Wenger? There's all these conversations, but, you know, essentially this whole Pep and Klopp era has really just been
I think if you look at it like a real football fan, like a real football fan, you watch it day in, day out, week in, week out, you will rate Klopp really, really highly because we know what he's done for the game. If he wasn't in England for the past 8-9 years, what more could Pep have actually done? Even though Pep's done more than enough, imagine if he didn't have a challenger. Then what?
But I'm just thinking like, but then on the flip side, look, when we look at eras, yeah, when you look at like the Ferguson, Wenger era, for instance, yeah, in the 90s and the 2000s, yeah, look how many trophies were shared out between the two. It wasn't.
That was my last point. Was that in 20 years' time, when a kid's asking, or when a kid's talking about football, and they're like, "Oh, the greatest managers," when they look at that list of league winners, they don't look at who finished runners up. They just the Man City won. Who was their manager at the time? Man City won. Who was their manager? Man City won. Who was their manager? No one don't care about anything else.
And in the league, right? I mean, don't get me wrong. Klopp's done an exceptional job, and I'm not taking away the other trophies he's won. You know, Champions League, getting to the finals that he got to in the Champions League, the FA Cups, Carabao Cups, or whatnot. However, when we look at the league, it's really been a whitewash. You know, and it's really the Pep Guardiola era. And Klopp's done well to compete. And anybody, like, it's no stain on Klopp himself, but it's difficult to compete against that City team with that level of resources, with that squad, with the best manager in world football and arguably the world, right? He's got a stronger, maybe global CV than, say, Sir Alex Ferguson. You know, Fergie's got a better PR legacy, which is obviously because he did the time. But in terms of, if we're looking at our body of work, there can be arguments made that Pep Guardiola is one of, if not the best manager to grace, you know, football. So it's not staying on Klopp, but it's just, yeah, it's just interesting. But what do you make of, before we get on to our beloved Arsenal, what did you think of the City game? Did you manage to catch that? Or?
Of course, man. Well, obviously, both games actually, well, the second leg, watching it whilst I wasn't really watching it, obviously I was paying attention. You're watching it on the TV and you'll see the goals go in, so I was really go in. And when they showed it whilst watching the Arsenal game, saw the Bruyne's going. Obviously, as soon as Arsenal game finished, I flicked over and saw the extra time for the City Madrid game. And before the game, especially after watching them last year and how many actually dominated that time, I did think it's going to be a hard game for Madrid to come out of it. And then after the 2-2 draw at the Bernabeu, I thought, going to City's ground, it's going to be an even tougher game for them to go through. But Madrid defended like animals, and they really put in, like, for all the great players and the great abilities that each one of the individuals have, they put in a shift for each other. And if a top team like that can do it, then it just shows you what they're all about, really. That they deserve to go through. They have the know-how. They have the manager with the know-how. The club itself has the know-how. And he's getting the best out of these players. And I would say probably player for player, Man City are better. But Madrid, well drilled, worked hard for each other, had a perfect setup, you should say, and they delivered. That's what they did in the big stage.
Yeah, I mean, I was watching both games. I had the Madrid on the iPad, and I was watching that as well, and it was interesting. I mean, I felt City would be extremely disappointed with the result because they had chances. In my opinion, they did dominate the game. They did control the game, and they do what City do at the Etihad. And I think De Bruyne missed a really big chance. Foden had a chance in extra time as well where he mishits the ball.
Yeah,
they had the moments in the game to win the game where they just didn't take them. And obviously, like any cup competition, if you don't take your chances, you will be punished. And as you alluded to, explained, Madrid really defended extremely well. They had a really strong defensive setup, a structure, a game plan, how to nullify. And then obviously what they do have is that pace to exploit that City high line. They've got players that are fearless, players that are willing to carry that ball past one player or two players to combine. And one thing I like about Don Carlo, right, is his ability to give players freedom. In an era,
because you spoke about Pep being one of the great. Pep, Don Carlo, where do we sit?
You know what? It's something I'd have to look more into. I mean, obviously, Don Carlo's got more Champions Leagues. I think he's won it 4 times, if I'm not mistaken, off the top of the head. And he's won it at different clubs as well. So it's something. Maybe you could argue that Carlo Ancelotti's got a better European. Not argue. I think Don Carlo's got a better European legacy as a manager. But maybe when you look at domestically, you also have to look at Pep Guardiola's ability to dominate the domestic leagues wherever he's gone. And that's where, the debate that's probably maybe the equalizer, because I think Pep Guardiola has more league titles than Carlo Ancelotti does. So there's, it's interesting.
That's a hard one, though, because Pep, that's the one, because Madrid were still obviously good at the time and he dominated them, even though Real Madrid did get a couple titles there. I actually think they only got one while I was there.
They got one. That was the Mourinho season when I think Mourinho got 100 plus points, right? Yeah. That's the only.
Yeah. He's expected in it, really. Obviously, what he's come and done in England is a masterstroke. But then again, with all the money he spent, he's kind of expected. He took over a team that won it 2 out of the last 4 years before.
But you know what? Also in a sense, so there's also revisionism, because I remember very clearly that in Pep Guardiola's first season, when City finished, if I'm not mistaken, they finished 3rd in his first season, and he was trying this tiki-taka. He had Bravo in goal these times. Bravo, Joe Hart was exiled, and there was this, conversation about can this style be transformed over into the Premier League? And a lot of people criticizing it, turning their nose up at it, saying that he can't do it in that type of way in the Premier League. And then that season onwards, the next season he goes on and he does a Centurion season. And then he goes on and he establishes his legacy. So, there's one thing about having that expectation, but also with that expectation, you have to deliver and you have to motivate these players. And one of the things that we use to prop up Fergie is how he managed to keep his team motivated regardless. He used to keep that team hungry for titles, and Pep Guardiola has done the same. And to do that against, again, a Liverpool team that have pushed them more seasons than not, they have been pushed. Arsenal pushed them last season. Even this year, we're talking about them like they're not that great this year, right? Yeah. And even then, despite that, they're now top of the league. Like, how is it after a treble? And most teams drop off after a treble. There's some sort of fall off. But until Wednesday just gone, they were in hunt for a treble, and they could still do a double, right? They could still win the Premier League and the FA Cup, right? And you'd probably say the favourites for that. So I think there still needs to be a level of respect, because a lot of managers have had money and they haven't been able to get the performances that City have got out of their team. But I think it's time to move over to, the red side and let's talk about our beloved Arsenal, because I know Kerry mentioned that she wanted to hear about certain bottlers. So I'll let you start, because I'm sure
it's a tough one then. I don't quite see it as bottlers. Like, obviously, it's our first year back in for 7-8 years. So I think the expectation is more because of how we've competed in the league in the last 2 years. The expectation is that we go and take it to the European competition, because we can do it. It looks like we can do it on a week-to-week basis in the hardest league in the world. When you come up against these European teams like Porto, who you're looking at the Portuguese league, and they're like, any team in A should be a team from the Portuguese league. Then you come up against Bayern Munich team who are getting trampled on by Leverkusen, you're thinking, well, I need to trample on them too. But it's been a tough week, not just in Europe. Obviously, we lost to Villa. We drew the first leg. We lost to Villa, and then it was all about going out there and putting on a performance that showed we were trying to push the team like that. For me, it was really timid. It looked more like we wanted to lose rather than we wanted to go and win. We didn't kind of take the game to them, which is hard to see sometimes, but it's understandable in big competitions and against big teams. They set up really well. It's not like we're playing any Tom, Dick and Harry team. They have a decent coach, has experience. They've got players in that lineup, although they haven't performed every week for the season. And that's questionable, because, I mean, Bayer Leverkusen they've had a one in a lifetime season, I'd call it. Whereas Bayern Munich on average have had this same season for the last 4 or 5 years, if you look at their points standing where they're at. But if we're saying it, just they haven't performed to the best of their ability. The players don't, but on a one-off occasion, they can. And I think that's what they did. Their big players turned up. The likes of Kimmich obviously popped up with a goal, but put in an overall good performance. Goretzka, like his usual self, box to box, flying, winning the ball back. Sane he looked really unplayable at times, and Musiala just showed what a top player he is. And Kane, although he didn't really do anything apart from obviously score the penalty, what he does for them, which a lot of teams don't have, which is why we're able to press so high, is that when the keeper has the ball, and obviously we don't press all keepers. So I remember us doing that against United, and we didn't press Onana because of how good he is with the ball at his feet. But then Onana did kick it long. Højlund, or whoever was playing up front, is not as good at holding on to the ball, winning fouls, bringing others into play as a Harry Kane. So our press, when they did beat it, or when they just went long instead, it just eliminated everything. And I thought the game plan was really, really well thought out. They went wide to the wings, doubled up, tripled up on our fullbacks, and waited for the moment. And that's when they got it. So it's a tough week to take. I think the league performance against Villa made it even harder. And like you said, the bottling situation, I think, will only come to fruition if we then don't go and beat Wolves this weekend. For me now, it's just about winning every Premier League game left. If we win this weekend, we go top of the league. I think we played twice before City even play another league game, so we could be 4 points clear if we won both of them before City playing. Maybe put some pressure on them and see if they can drop a point, draw a game, and I guess that's what we're looking for now. We can only do what we do, but yeah, I guess it just showed what we really need to go to the next level. Like, we're a good team with some quality players, but we need game winners, match winners, difference makers in that final third. And every time we do lose game to the likes of Man City, to Liverpool, it's because they have game winners, and that normally shows.
Yeah. But also, I mean, look, I'm gonna start for me with, like, going through the game. So, like, when the game first started, I thought it was I was actually very happy with the first half. I thought it was very mature, and it contrasted some of the criticism I had for other games. Like the Porto game, I felt Porto away were very edgy. Bayern at home, I felt we were too frantic. But in this first half, I felt like we got a foot on the ball to silence the crowd. We kept possession, controlled the game, minimized their efforts on goal. We didn't force the ball, and although we didn't create many chances, I felt we did the right type of things that you should do in a European game, especially at somewhere as tough as Allianz, right? So that first half was quite promising. I know Martinelli had a chance where he took on his left, and I thought that should have been taken on his right, on his stronger foot. It made no sense for him to let that ball go across his body and then strike it with his weaker foot. But all in all, it was a solid half, and I thought it was something that we could build on. And in the second half, it was quite interesting. I thought Bayern really, really grew into the game. I think they hit the post twice in quick succession, and when they get that golden score, and obviously, we've spoken privately about my thoughts on that goal. I thought it was extremely shoddy defending from us, right? And I felt Ben White was very tepid and very slow to go to the ball. I mean, I'd understand his apprehension for it maybe being, if it was maybe someone who's more skillful than a Guerrero, or like if he was coming up against Sane in that instance, but he really kind of laboured to that ball, and he allows Guerrero to get that cross, and then obviously both Martinelli and Tomiyasu go to sleep. But what the biggest disappointment for me was, our failure to respond in any type of manner once they scored. I mean, 30 minutes went on from the minute they scored to when the game ended, and there was no response. We had no shots on target, right? And the naivety of the squad and the mindset of the mentality of the squad can kind of be summed up when in those last few minutes when Saka had that quick free kick, right? And it's like all your defenders are going up, right? All your big men, and you've got a moment to really, really put some real pressure on Bayern in that second. The fans are going to be extremely nervous, and for you to rush it, to not take all that time.
You know what though? I did see that, obviously. I've seen replays of it a few times.
Yeah.
The actual quick free kick, obviously Ben White receives it literally right in front of Neuer and I think it's Eric Dyer or someone comes flying across. But Bayern Munich were obviously very switched on throughout the whole game. And in that specific moment, they were very switched on because it was a big opportunity if they weren't. But I get that you throw everyone in the box at the last minutes. It's a percentage, high percentage. I get that.
Yeah. I mean, look, we've also, when you look at what we've done this season, is we've really established ourselves as real set piece threats. So for me, why not give yourself that ability? You know, Bayern were panicking at corners. I saw Neuer, punch a corner back out for another corner when Saka delivered it earlier on. There was a real panic. They weren't comfortable in those positions, right? Because they knew the threat that we posed from them from set pieces. So for me, that was the naivety. And even Arteta, look, I'm still behind the manager. I know there's a lot of people, screaming Arteta out, but his substitutes were extremely baffling. And for me, it's, he deserved criticism because his idea of changing the game was, let me just throw on as many attackers as I can on the pitch. However, that doesn't allow you to create chances. You need players to play in those attackers. Jorginho was probably our most progressive player in midfield, right? And obviously he was starting to fade, but he was the player that was able to feed other players. As soon as he went and Kai Havertz is in midfield, right? Say what you want about, whether you like him or you dislike Kai Havertz in the signing, I'm not even going to get into that, but he's not a midfielder that's going to create with the ball. He's not going to lay off those passes and release our attackers. So how are you going to get the best out of the players that you brought on with, Kai Havertz in midfield? Like, if he did something like one,
you need someone to progress the ball, and the players that would progress the ball, Thomas Partey on the bench, Fabio Vieira bench, and
Zinchenko.
It didn't make sense.
Right. So he deserves some criticism as well because you can't, attack. If he treated like how I used to treat things on our Ultimate Team. When I used to play Ultimate Team, when I was down in the last 10 minutes, I put wingers in centre midfield, and just be like, it's attack time, right? But real football don't work like that. You need players to feed your attackers. You need some sort of thing. Otherwise, they're never gonna have the opportunity to score goals. And that was, that was quite damning. And what's also quite interesting, going back to, the comment earlier, which is about bottling. One of the things that I find very worrying for me was I felt this game had a lot of similarities to Villa. The first half, we started well, Villa, created chances or, looked to be the dominant team in that half, looked controlled, looked measured. And then in the second half, we completely faded. And by the time 90 minutes is played, we look completely out of that game. They didn't look like we could have played that game for another 100 minutes and we wouldn't have scored. And the same can be said about Villa. And that to me seems to be a pattern. When Arsenal drop points, when you think about it, when we lose, a lot of times there is no response. We just seem to kind of just let it happen almost. How can we have no shots on target in 30 minutes? It's absolutely where was that sense of urgency? I saw it Fulham away when we were losing to Fulham away, right? This season, no urgency. We've seen it at Villa. We've seen it at last season away to Forest. When our heads are down, we just Newcastle as well. It's almost like there's no fight. And look, I'm not being elitist. There is ways in which, I can't expect a team to win every game, right? But there's also the idea of how you lose the game, right? Did you give it? Did you battle? Like, for instance, City lost to Wolves this year, right? This season. I remember that game. But they had lots of chances and they lost the game. You don't look at it and be like, they never tried. It was a lack of effort. It was just that they just never had that edge. You can accept that. The same with Liverpool against Palace the other day, for instance. Liverpool peppered Palace's goal, but it wasn't a lack of trying or effort or actually going for it. It was a lack of, clinicalness, right? Which is still frustrating, but you don't.
But then sometimes we do have to give the opposing team credit for their. We do it to a lot of teams where we don't allow. In this year, we haven't allowed hardly anything on our own goal.
Yeah, but I don't. I would look at it and be like, where like we didn't pass the ball with urgency. We didn't try to. It's like we were just playing side with left to right, and it was not like they tried to cross balls and they were snuffing it out. We were trying things. So for me, like it's not about me. You know, like we didn't ask the questions of Bayern Munich enough for us to see them snuff us out. Because if that was the case, I could be like, well, you know what, we tried, but we just couldn't. They just defended so well. We were just more like we were playing tepid, side to side, and you know, when it comes to mentality, this is a real question. I said mentality is something that I have to question because of this. Because it's like when the going gets tough, can you dig in? Can you fight? Right? When there's pressure on, when there's something riding on the line, and you know, I feel like I did say it's too early to give us that bottle title yet because we still have Wolves to play this Saturday. But it is questions that need to be asked because the squad 3 seasons in a row in April have struggled when the going gets tough. And I know there've been reasons. Partey got injured the first season. I think we had someone else that got injured that week. KT went out as well. Had no left back when we were going for Champions League. That played a huge part in it. The next season was the Saliba and Tomiyasu injuries. But this season now, for instance, we've got everybody fit. So we can't really even draw on that. And I also like to kind of step back and look at things objectively. Like they had lost a huge amount they lost significant players in their team. Their star wingers were out. So imagine we were out without Saka. We were out without Martinelli. They lost Davies. So let's say Ben White was out, for instance. Yeah. Who else? Who else had they lost? It was Coleman, Gnabry, Davies, right? So imagine we lost that amount of players. You know, teams would be coming up against Arsenal thinking this should be.
Yeah, in the league, if it was a league game, I would understand a bit more. But I feel the Champions League is still a lot about know-how and how to navigate in that European atmosphere and them knockout stage rounds. And this is our first attempt at it.
But can I ask you a thing? I mean, I've heard a lot of people talk about European. There's the idea of European heritage, and I think it's a very easy, lazy narrative. Yeah, for the simple reason. The reason why I say this is, I'll tell you why I think it's a. I'll give you some context as to why I think it's a lazy narrative. Because when you sit back and you look at it, Liverpool, for instance, under Klopp, had been out of the Champions League for a few seasons, never had no Champions League experience, went into a final. Now, none of those players were really European Champions League players. Mane hadn't had that experience. Salah really hadn't had that experience like that. Virgil van Dijk hadn't had that experience like that, really. You know, like they weren't players that were, you know, that had played 50 games in the Champions League. There's a level of mentality and fearlessness that they approached it with. Atletico Madrid are a team that have never won it ever before. When Simeone started managing them and got them into the Champions League, they were competing. Again, it's more to do with mindset. Sometimes it's easier to be like, oh, it's to do with heritage. But the reality is also to do with mindset. If you look at Man City, for years, the thing that held them back was never ability, it was mindset, because they went out to the likes of Monaco, they went out to the likes of Lyon. These ain't teams that are better than Man City. It was to do that that
shows that it's this is a process that you have to go through.
Well,
I'm just saying the same process.
Yeah, but again, the process was about mentality, is what I'm trying to say to you. It's not about heritage. Yeah. It's about mentality. And that's why the question of mentality has to kind of come into the equation. Because for me, in the league, they had the mentality to stay the course. However, when it came to Europe, for teams that were, remember, they weren't playing Bayern Munich, who are maybe equal or just a little bit below. They were playing teams where they were favourites.
Yeah, so it's understandable. So this year league, Arsenal won the remaining games, but Man City won the remaining games, that we finished 2 points behind City. Yeah? That shows our mentality is different, right? But last year we didn't do that. We just crumbled completely. So then, if the Champions League is a whole different story. They took 7 years to be able to do what they did.
Yeah. I'm not looking at it as City did this and we should then take 7. I'm just saying to you, when we look at it, I'm just looking at
Mourinho at Madrid. How did he? He didn't even win at Madrid.
No, he didn't win at Madrid. But what I'm trying to say to you is a lot of times we conflate heritage and mentality. Is what I'm trying to say to you is whatever you want to, however you want to say it, the players maybe need more experience. They need to get used to it. But the reality is that we have seen teams with like Liverpool that who have come in under Klopp, whose players never had that experience, get to a final. We've seen Atletico who've never won it before in their history, like Arsenal, get to finals, and that is to do with the mentality that the players have and the confidence that these players have going into these fixtures. So we can, we can use other teams to make us feel better and put context into it, and that's all cool. Well and good. I don't disagree with the fact that we can grow into it.
Liverpool's run-up. So Liverpool's run-up when they won it, when they beat Spurs.
No, I'm not talking about that one. I'm talking about before that, because in Klopp's first season, they got to a CL final. Do you remember that?
Yeah.
And they lost
against Madrid.
Yes.
I'm trying to think who they had in the build-up to that final, like the games. Obviously, I can't remember who they had in the build-up to that final, but Arsenal obviously play a certain way. When you're talking about like Atletico Madrid, and we know that what their mentality is, and that's their mentality for every league game. Play a certain way. You don't really want to go to their stadium and play against them. They play a certain way. They're built to defend. They don't really want to come out and play. Whereas Arsenal are a different breed. We're expected to go out and play. And we're not just expected to win. We're expected to win. We're expected to play. If we was expected to sit there and all the fans were going to be like, oh, yeah, that's great. We're just going to sit there and defend. We don't even have the player to do that. So I think it's mentality, but it is. I think for Arsenal personally, I think it is our mentality. We're not ready, but I don't think it's the case.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying to you. I'm saying to you, we can sugarcoat, because I know I've seen a lot of people use City as an example to kind of put context into it. And I don't disagree with that, but but then when you strip that layer down, the reality is that City for 8 seasons under Guardiola, or 7 seasons, whatever it was, it took him to win that Champions League, lacked the mentality in that competition. They had a mental block, and we can sugarcoat it as whatever it is, but that is it in stone, because Klopp managed to do it, with having spent significantly less than Pep, and he'd reached more finals, right? So that is the fact of the matter. So my idea for me as an Arsenal fan watching that game is it's not about having the expectancy to beat Bayern, because Bayern Munich are still Bayern Munich. They still have quality, but there's a manner in which how you lose. Like if you're a boxer and you go into a fight and you don't throw a punch and you get absolutely slumped, there's a difference between that and actually going into a fight, giving it your all, going 12 rounds, but you lose the fight. There's some pride you take from that type of performance and be like, you know what, it wasn't our day, but at least we gave it our all. And I think that is where the frustration and anger from Arsenal fans come from. I think there's some that are too entitled. I can agree with that. There's some that think, oh, we're having a good season, Bayern Munich can't. It's as simple as that. But like I say, I think there's a manner in how there should be a manner in how you lose, and there should be a pride in which you play with, and an effort in which you play with. And I don't feel like in the second half there was enough of that. I felt like we were just flat again, and we just kind of almost.
The problem is we watch our team every week and we see the way we open team up and how we play, and not once in the second leg against Bayern Munich did it look like we were getting them through. I think that's the biggest problem that we had going out the way we did.
Yeah. I mean, and I think the worrying thing for Arsenal is that we have a history, right, under Arteta, that we lose games in groups, right, or we drop points in groups, right, and it happens in clumps, So we had West Ham, Fulham, and then Liverpool in the FA Cup this season. Last season we had Liverpool away, West Ham away, Southampton at home. The season before that, I can't remember. I can't remember the rest of it on top of the head. But there is this pattern, and that is why I asked the questions about mentality. Because if you fight, and a lot of those games, we question the attitude, the application of the team, how they did things, the errors. A lot of that, again, all stems to mentality. This is why the questions have to be asked. And again, I think this might be a good segue for us to kind of preview, the Wolves game and whatnot. But it'll be interesting now to see how if we bounce back, or will this be the same old Arsenal? Yeah, will we have our annual April crumble, or will we actually show that we are a step above? I mean, fortunately, we're playing a Wolves team that is quite depleted. I mean, I've seen today the likes of Cunha's out, Pedro Neto's out, Dawson's out, Semedo's out, Nori, who's an absolute baller. I'm a big fan of, is doubtful.
Oh.
Yeah, will start on the bench apparently, and Hwang can, aka the Korean guy, can only do 5 minutes. Yeah, so we're actually quite fortunate because Wolves have had really, really good performances against the big teams this season, and they're a team that are able to hurt teams in transition. Really able to, teams that play with high lines. They have that pace, trickery, directness, 1v1 ability to kind of exploit gaps and whatnot, and have runners, runners from deep and whatnot. Bellegarde is another one who's a good ball carrier, good pace, good energy that's out. So we're quite fortunate in that regards, but it's still going to be a tough way. Gary O'Neill's shown this season that he is a really, really good coach. Really good coach. And I think it'll be interesting to see how we do. I know we've got Wolves on Saturday, Chelsea Tuesday, Spurs Sunday, if I'm not mistaken. That's a tough run, and it's going to be interesting to see, do we have the mental capability to shut out the hurt and disappointment in the last 3 games and win? I mean, I'm confident about beating Wolves, especially with their injuries. But then obviously it'll be interesting to see the Chelsea and the Tottenham games, because I think those games are going to be a lot more.
On the flip side, obviously we're out now. Champions League is gone. We've got 6 games left in the league.
Yep, 6 games.
6 games left in the league now. We have 6 cup finals, as they call it. 6 games that Arteta needs to get. There should be that the motivation's already there. Team talks are done. Show them the league table at the beginning of every game. This is what we got to do. Win your remaining games, put pressure on the team above, and that's all we can do for now. But Wolves, obviously, like you said, they've got many players out, so many players out, which should only work in a benefit for us. We need to forget Wednesday now and go out there and put on a performance, but not only put on a performance, but win, get the 3 points, which is most important right now. 3 points, 3 points, 3 points. Obviously, it would be nice to see a performance because the fans are really needing it. And for me, I don't really care. We could win every game 1-0 to the end of the season. I won't give a damn about collecting the points, but it'll be nice to see a good performance too, a few goals. Some of us back to their better versions of themselves. I mean, hopefully Arteta doesn't tinker too much, but hopefully he's seen the flaws that we've had in the last couple of games, and he may try and adjust and adapt to those. I do see us beating Wolves and going top of the league come the end of Saturday, which I think will be a big boost mentally as well. Man City will have to wait to get back above us, and they've got games in between. So they've got the obviously FA Cup game. Chelsea will get on. But if we're talking about Chelsea, who will be our next opponents after Wolves this week, I mean, they play against City this weekend. And who knows how much they can take out of them. Hopefully, a couple of injuries there, a couple there.
We'll be able to preview that we'll be able to preview that game more in depth on Monday, right? So we'll be back on Monday to preview that game. Talk about the Wolves game as well, post Wolves, and preview the Chelsea game. But yeah, it will be difficult for them. Hopefully, if they're knocked out, they'll be on a bit of a downer. I'm hoping for 100 minutes.
Man City make them run around.
I want 100 minutes.
Yeah, you're hoping that they run around for a bit, play the whole 120, go to penalties, and then get knocked out, so they're on the downer.
Yeah,
but City on the yeah. But man, we just need to do our job, go to the top of the league, and keep it moving.
I think one interesting thing, right, in comparison to the last 2 seasons, is that usually when we have lost games, we've had large gaps between games. So it'd be a thing where we'd be playing once a week, and we'd have a lot of time to stew over that disappointment. But we're actually in a situation now where we have games coming thick and fast. So it'll be interesting to see if that change allows the players also to kind of not be able to kind of stew on, the bad results and let that kind of marinate and really affect them. So yeah, it'll be interesting in that regard. So I think, like yourself, I do think we'll beat Wolves. I don't care about performances. I think those that are looking for performances have got the wrong idea, because at this part of the seasons, performances don't matter. It's just about results. It's about finding a way by hook or by crook to get yourself over the line. And if we are to beat Man City to the title, if we are to have any hope of beating them to the title,
You know one thing though, obviously we just want the 3 points, and I did say if we win 1-0 every game of the season and get the 3 points, that's one. The only problem with that is that if Man City did draw a game and then won the rest, and we won all our games, we'd finish on level points. Now, if the games that they won were 3-0, 4-0, then that could be an issue.
It could be an issue, but at the same time, I think right now, with where we're at, right now the second, I think we have to look at it as we have 3 really tough games. Say what you want. I think Wolves beat Tottenham, they beat City, and they pushed Liverpool really, really hard at the Molineux. So I think, with that being said, Chelsea have only really lost to Liverpool away at Anfield, but they've given City tough games. Pardon?
Did they lose to Chelsea lose to Wolves as well?
I'm talking about from the big 6. Yeah, they did lose to Wolves did beat Chelsea. But I mean, like, in terms of from the big 6, Chelsea have turned up. So that's going to be a really tough game, regardless of how shocking they are. I mean, I feel like they thrive off the big games because they've got the players to do so. And then obviously North London Derby is a North London Derby. So that's going to be a really, really big week. And if we somehow manage to get out of that unscathed, it will be, it will be very interesting. And like you said, we played twice before City. That again is some sort of pressure. So all we can do is do our job and then worry about the rest afterwards. But I think that's probably a good segue to move over to Liverpool, right? And obviously we talked about Liverpool being out of Europa, but will they bounce back for Klopp? What's your takes, man? Fulham away.
It's a tough one because Fulham are a bit of a iffy team. I've seen them put in some good performances. They went to United and good performance. You don't know what Fulham you're getting with them, but at the same time, the season right now, especially right now, we don't know what Liverpool are getting. I do think that, like you said, they although they lost the tie and went out, they did win the game on Thursday. So, and they will go to Fulham and expect to win it. But like you said earlier in the season, going away to any ground is never the easiest thing to do. But if you want to win the league and you want to compete, then at the stage of the season, that's what you have to do. You've got to go and win them games. And I do think Liverpool will win. I'm hoping, obviously, for a draw or a loss. I'm hoping for some drop points, but I do think they'll win. I see it as a routine win because I'm not quite sure what Fulham are gonna give. Hopefully, Liverpool may just have some tired legs. When you continue to miss the amount of chances that they've missed in the previous games, eventually that's going to stop. Hopefully, this week they continue to miss or not create in general, but I can't see it lasting for too long. I can see them winning the World Cup.
Yeah, I mean, look, with Liverpool, I've said for a long time that their attack is their trump card, right? And it's almost like their superpower this season. But at the moment, it seems they're firing blanks. And I don't necessarily know if that's going to pick right up straight away, because scoring was also a confidence-based thing, right? We talk about goal scorers. And when they're in that vein of form, there's a level of confidence, a level of arrogance that they play with, instinctiveness. and everybody seems to be second guessing themselves. We saw that with Curtis Jones running through on goal against Palace, and how he ruined that chance. We saw Mo Salah the other day, who hasn't been the same player since he's been back from AFCON. And in fact, if we're going to talk about Mo Salah, for me, not to bring it back to Arsenal, but for me, I think him and Saka have had very similar seasons in the sense of they haven't performed as well as they have in previous years. However, they have goals and assists and moments in games which maybe mask it. I mean, one thing I have enjoyed about Salah this season is this whole playmaking arc. For me, he's been a lot more of a finisher. This season, he's kind of been in his playmaking bag, his ability to feed other teammates. He's gone up, he's added another string to his bow, which we haven't seen before. But I think I can genuinely, it's not just, hopium and me saying this as an Arsenal fan, just wanting them to drop points, but I can actually see them dropping points at Fulham. I think they've got 3 away games on the trot. I think they go Fulham. I think Fulham, Everton, and I can't remember the one in between. And I can sense them dropping points in some of these fixtures. And if they don't, then I think they're in good stead for the title. Let me just have a double check at their fixtures. I think it's Fulham away. It's Fulham away, Everton away, and then it's West Ham away. So those are 3 tough games.
Yeah, especially Everton fighting for their lives at the bottom.
There you go.
West Ham for European sport.
There you go. So and Fulham, like you said, Fulham have beaten us twice this season. They gave Man City a good run for their money. They gave Liverpool a good scare in the Carabao Cups in both legs. They really, really pushed them hard. So, I can see Liverpool drop points. They've had a really tough game fixture. Klopp didn't just throw it away. He really went for it. And I know he took off Salah and a few players, but a lot of players played 90 minutes. Trent played. I think Conor Bradley's out now as well. Robertson played. Virgil played. There's going to be some sort of emotion as well because those players know that they've let Klopp down. They really know they let Klopp down. There's a difference between, say, the Arsenal crashed out of Europe and Liverpool, because I think with Liverpool there was a real expectation that you should be in Dublin, and when you are at Dublin, you should be lifting that trophy. Whereas with Arsenal, there is an expectation where it says is you're playing a weakened and injured Bayern side, you should really progress to the next round. There's not an expectation of winning the whole tournament because they're so early into it, and it's obviously a step above. But Liverpool are a Champions League team in the Europa League, if we're to be brutally honest. So they are going to be on a down, and it'll be interesting to see how they bounce back. They've missed chance after chance against United, Atlanta, Palace, again, Atlanta again.
What we want is just a early Fulham goal and then see what Liverpool have. The same way we're questioning what Arsenal have in the lock. Are we bottlers? What mentality do the players have? It's the same. You've got to ask the same questions for Liverpool.
Yeah, you can ask the same question, but I also think it's a different conversation with Liverpool. And you might look at me and think I'm mad, but I'd say it's a different conversation because it's also a new Liverpool. This ain't the same Liverpool with that has the spine and of the last few years, right? The Hendersons, the Fabinhos, the Firminos, the Manes. Their whole midfield has gone through a revamp. They brought in all these new players. There are obviously some older statesmen that have stayed along with this Liverpool team. But if we're to sit back and look at it, this is a transitional, season for Liverpool, and nobody was really expecting them to be in a title race so early, considering that Klopp revamped the whole midfield in one summer. So, if I'm to be honest, I can't really doubt their mentality because for me, I was looking at them and like, well, you should be trying to get in that top 4. I don't really see you pushing for a title because you haven't, you've got freaking Endo in 6.
Mentality, yes. The mentality is still like that Arsenal challenge once. At big season, no one, but a lot of pundits and stuff thought, okay, Arsenal are going to just drop back down. I don't think they're going to be able to sustain the same. But Arsenal have shown mentality to actually still sustain a Premier League title charge. But we're still questioning Arsenal's mentality. Liverpool's mentality, they should have won the Europa League.
Yeah.
They had a terrible season, obviously, in the league last year, and this year they didn't expect to be challenging. But when you have those attackers, it's hard to not say, I'm going to challenge, because you have one that scored 20 to 30 goals. Once you have that, it's very hard to say, I'm not going to challenge them.
No, I hear it. But what I'd also say is that the difference between Arsenal and Liverpool over the last 3 years is that Arsenal have had a team, if we look at it, honestly speaking, they've had a team that we've been adding to every year. And it's a group of players that have kind of stayed together. Where Liverpool are kind of on the opposite. They had a team that's being dismantled year by year. And it's been changing. So for us, the trajectory of Arsenal is here, and Liverpool's is uncertain at the moment because they're trying to do a rebuild. So after last season, there's no certainty of what type of Liverpool you were going to see, because they struggled so much, and then obviously they got rid of so much. And even in the summer, they're talking about getting rid of the likes of Salah. So even then, it's a difference when you're looking at the likes of Saka, Martinelli, this player, that player, all growing, Ben White, Saliba, Gabriel, all players that are growing together, and Liverpool in some ways are slowly going out with the old and in with the new. And a lot of those new are younger, inexperienced, not at the same level type of players. So I think that's where, for me, I look at the difference, if we're to be thing. But if it happens next season and the season after that, then those same questions would have to be applied to Liverpool for me, because now it's like you've got the same group of players that have had time to grow. You can't keep on, failing at that final hurdle.
Well, I guess, hopefully Liverpool drop points and we pick up. But the last game that we're going to talk about on today's show is not a Premier League game, but the City v Chelsea game in the FA Cup, which is going to be really interesting because Chelsea had really good games against City this season. Cole Palmer especially. They tend to play better against the big teams. City obviously off back of playing 120 minutes and then going out on penalties at home to Madrid. And we don't know how much that's taken out of their legs, out of their mental. So it's going to be really interesting. City on it straight away again, 3 days later, ready to go in a big game. And can they get up for it, and can they pass the stern test? Because I'm sure they would have rather been on the other side and played commentary after the Madrid game. Unfortunately, they've got a team that know how to beat them, and if they've had a walk there, they should be ready. So it's going to be really interesting to see, I think. And I would probably. It's hard to bet against. It's hard to go into any game and bet against City because we know what they're capable of doing and what they've done every season for the past however many seasons. But I'm gonna go Chelsea this week, and I'm gonna go City actually have a hangover from the physical and mental defeat to Real Madrid, and it's actually gonna take a toll on them. I'm gonna go to Chelsea win this weekend.
I'm actually on the same mentality. I've seen the news about KDB injured, Haaland injured, muscle injuries. A lot of players. I think Akanji has to come off as well. So they are going to feel. I saw the Rodri interview after the Madrid loss, which is, in my opinion, also just horrible kind of mentality to have, in my opinion, because I understand. So he was basically saying only one team came to win, and for me, it's this kind of football elitism ideology where you're thinking like there's only one way to play football, and there ain't. There really isn't. Yeah, it's your job to score goals and to keep out goals in whichever way that you decide, and the onus is on you to find a way around that as a team. So don't kind of like rub your nose at Madrid for employing the tactics that they did, because they did that and they're now in the semi-finals and you're not. And more power to them. And had the shoe been on our foot, you would be there celebrating in front of your fans and not caring about how you've done it. So it's, I feel like naturally there's going to be some sort of disappointment because they were favourites for the Champions League. I honestly, genuinely believe that a treble was attainable for City. It really was attainable for City. You know, had they beaten Real Madrid, I think that run to the final would be absolutely beautiful, because I think they will breeze past Bayern Munich, and I think they would beat whoever is on the other bracket, whether it be PSG or it be Dortmund. I think that's a no contest for them. So, you know, and then obviously with their history in the league and who's left in the FA Cup, they'd also feel quite confident of their ability to do it, because they have the know-how, they have the manager, they have players that have ran that race before. So with all that disappointment being said, with the injuries, and I think, you know, one of the things that's, you know, that Chelsea, as bad as Chelsea are, and, you know, I've had this conversation with other friends, Chelsea have a lot of attacking talent. They have a lot of pace out wide. They have a lot of players that are very direct, and that is the way to hurt teams like, you know, not even teams that see, but any big team. That is, you know, pace is one of the biggest. It's one of the scariest things to defend. Players that are fearless with the ball, players that are direct, and they have that in abundance. I've seen Raheem Sterling take Walker for a walk on 2 occasions this season. You know, have him in his pocket. I've seen Jackson have, you know, decent games where he's linking up, and his pace is troubling the back line of City. So
Yeah.
I think, you know, Chelsea should really go into that game with some sort of confidence and some sort of semblance that they can really go out and actually salvage something from this season. Because if they were to beat Man City and then they were to play Man United or Coventry, whoever it be, they would then be in the Europa League. That would be a very successful season. That, for me, if Poch managed to win the FA Cup, that season for me, regardless of where they are in the league, that would take a season to a 9 for me.
It turns around everything that we've seen about Chelsea this whole season, if that happens.
If that happens, exactly.
It's a young team, it's a fresh team, it's a new manager. Like, everything about it just shows that whether they deserve to win it or not. I mean, if you have to go through City and if you go through City and then win the FA Cup final, you deserve to win.
Yeah.
So
even if they have an easy run, it's like you still got to do the job, right? And other teams were supposed to do their job and they failed, right? The likes of City, had they not played City, you know, I don't really subscribe to who you play sometimes. Sometimes it makes it even sweeter, but the reality is that you do your job and other teams have to do their job. And if they fail, that's who it is. You can only beat who's in front of you. But for him to reach, essentially, you know, hypothetically, reach 2 finals, the Carabao Cup final and win the FA Cup, right? With all the issues in the squad, with the young players, with them fighting over penalties, with, you know, I'm trying to say to you, with all the madness that's going on at Chelsea, that would be outstanding. You know, and that would be actually a very successful season, because they have picked up silverware in a season when all hope was lost. So that is a big motivation for Poch, and it would actually probably keep him in a job, in my opinion. I think that would save his season. I mean, it remains to be seen whether they could actually play in Europe because of all the financial issues, and that's a conversation for a different day. But there's real motivation for them to go out and do it. And, you know, playing Man United is an incentive in itself, because you're not coming up it's not like you're coming up against City and then you're going to play Liverpool in the final, or another team that you're worried about in the final. You're coming up against a team that's struggling and that's probably worse coached than yourselves.
Yeah, that they've already beaten as well.
Yeah, I think they're 1-for-1 of the season so far, and it's 1-1. I think United won at home.
Be a good final if that was the case.
Oh yeah, bro, there's been goals galore in those games, man. Both can't defend. Both have got pace in attack. So yeah, but yeah, my bet is Chelsea for that final one. To beat City.
It's a good weekend for Arsenal.
I don't, bro. I don't want Chelsea in Europe. I want Chelsea to be in the gulag. I want City to go out and win that cup. That's my honest thing. I want Chelsea to be down. I want them to feel that they tried for 120 minutes. I want the Virgil van Dijk moment that happened in the Carabao Cup final. I want in the 190th minute, Ruben Diaz to go up, header the ball in there. They win 2-1, and Chelsea are heartbroken, tired, and depressed. And they come into the Arsenal game ready for a
Yeah.
spanking. That's what I'm hoping for.
I'm with it, man. But yeah, there we have it. Obviously, game tomorrow. Another weekend of Premier League football, FA Cup semi-finals. We will be with you guys again on Monday after the Prem games and after the FA Cup games to have a roundup of the weekend and hopefully talk about Arsenal being top of the league again. Hopefully talk about a couple injuries to key players on opposing teams. A couple suspensions. But yeah, here we have it. We'll be with you guys on Monday. Thank you for tuning in. We appreciate you guys. As you know, we're not streaming onto anything but YouTube no more. So please click the links that are in the Twitter bios or the Twitter post. Yeah, just tune in. We'll be here again on Monday. Yeah, anything you got, Mr. Y?
Yeah, like, comment, subscribe, all them things there, man. And yeah, we look forward to reviewing next set of games, man, because the last few games have been heartache and disappointment, but we back. we back.
We're back. We're back, man. We're here. Win or lose, we're here, man. We're here. So yeah, hopefully we have O back on Monday as well. So
yeah,
we'll get to it. We'll get to it.
And how Fulham took
we'll
3
give him
points.
passion that he didn't get today. Yeah, thanks for tuning in, guys. That's another episode of the OTP pod. See you guys next week.
Peace.